back to Bernat.com. Today we're going to be learning a double crochet. You commonly see it written in the pattern as a DC, that's its short form. And we're going to take you through it step by step. It's really easy, I promise, and we'll have you flying through it in no time at all. So let's get started. So today I'm using Bernat Super Value as my yarn and a 5mm crochet hook, and here I've already chained 7. And I'm going to be working 4 double crochets into this chain. And when you're working your first double crochet, your instructions are going to tell you to work it into the 4th chain from the hook. So to figure that out, you want to count. You don't count this one, you want to count from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I know sometimes it's a little hard to tell, but if you can kind of hold your chain facing you so that you have these kind of little V's that you can see, opposed to having this side facing you, it makes it a lot easier to see your stitches. So again, this is our first one, this is our second, third, fourth. So this is the stitch I'm actually going to be working into. I'm going to miss these ones here. So to start my double crochet, I want to wrap my yarn around my hook. And that's always an awkward movement when you're first learning, but you'll get to the point where it's more of a smooth movement. So I've got my yarn around my hook, and I want to insert that into that 4th chain from the hook. The next thing I want to do is wrap my yarn around my hook and draw up a loop. I now have 3 loops on my hook. And what I want to do is I want to make the same step twice. I want to wrap my yarn around my hook and draw through 2 loops on my hook. So here we go. Wrap my yarn around my hook and pull it through 2 loops on my hook. I now have 2 loops on my hook. I want to wrap my yarn around my hook and pull through 2 loops. And that's your first double crochet. And I know it seems like a lot of movements, but it's really, with some practice, you're going to have it memorized in no time at all. So here we go. I'm going to work my next double crochet into the next stitch. So this is the stitch I've just worked into, so I'm going to want to work into this one right here. So remember, wrap my yarn around my hook and insert it into the stitch. Wrap my yarn around my hook and draw up a loop. So now we're at the point we have 3 loops on our hook. And remember what I said last time? What we're going to do, we're going to repeat the next step twice, which is wrap our yarn around our hook and pull through 2 loops. And we're going to do that twice. Wrap my yarn around my hook once, wrap my yarn around my hook twice. And that's your next double crochet. So here we go. I am going to work into this next stitch here because that's the one I just worked into. So next one right here. So double crochets, we start with wrapping our yarn around our hook once, insert it into the stitch, and wrap our yarn around our hook and pull up a loop. We have our 3 stitches, and this is where we do that step twice where we pull through 2 loops, wrap our yarn around our hook, pull through 2 loops, wrap our yarn around our hook, pull through 2 loops. And there we go. That's your next double crochet. So I have one more to work right here into my last chain, and I'm going to show it to you in a smoother motion. So wrap my yarn around my hook, pull up a loop, wrap my yarn around my hook, go through 2, wrap my yarn around my hook, and go through 2. And that's your last double crochet. Now we're at the end of our row, so we want to turn it and work our next double crochets. Now the thing to know about the double crochets is this chain of stitches that you skipped counts as a stitch now, unless your pattern tells you otherwise, but most often this will count as a stitch. So now my row has 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's start our first double crochet. The pattern will tell you to chain 3. So to chain, we wrap our yarn around our hook and draw up a loop. So that's chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. Here's another thing to know. Your pattern will tell you whether this chain 3 counts as a stitch or not. If it counts as a stitch, it actually sort of lines up with this first stitch here. So when it says to work into the next stitch, you're actually going to work in over here. If it says it doesn't count as a stitch, you'll actually work right into here and you won't count this. More often than not, with a double crochet, this chain 3 counts as a stitch. So that's how I'm going to work mine. So we're going to count these chain 3 as my first stitch. I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook. I'm not going to work into this first one. I'm going to work into the second stitch here. So I'm going to insert my hook through. And now what you're going to see is there's actually 2 bars that you're going to go a front and a back loop. You're actually going to go through both of those. You're going to wrap your yarn around your hook and draw up a loop. These are the same steps as the previous row. Wrap my yarn around my hook, pull through 2 loops, wrap my yarn around my hook, pull through 2 loops. And there's your next double crochet. So I'll work one more, and that's going to go right into this stitch right here. And wrap our yarn around, pull up a loop, wrap my yarn around, pull up a loop, wrap my yarn around and pull up a loop. And there's your last double crochets, and you just keep going, and when you work into this top of this chain space, you treat it just like you would a stitch. So that's all there is to making double crochets. So this is what a swatch of double crochets look like, where every row is done with a double crochet. Exactly what we were just doing on our swatch, where we do double crochets and then we turn it, double crochets. So if we look at it, when we look at both sides, they look virtually the same because we're going back and forth and we're flipping between each time. So that's all there is to it, and we'll see you again at Bernat.com.